Yes. So, once again, I didn't want to do the going live montage with all the violence and all that stuff, considering that I'm about to read a book. It just didn't seem situationally comfy. Gonna get all the things together. Yada, yada, yada. I happen to have the TV on, just random. I think it's people dying inside or it's Jim. I figured I'd just leave it on there, shits and giggles. It's muted on my end, but I don't know about y'all. I put on all kinds of stupid montages and stuff when I'm doing random things.
Do you think if I asked for pineapple on the pizza, that they'd give it to me?
Alright, so, as per usual, I usually kind of give a minute or two for everything to even out. Myself included, because I don't know about you guys, but when I first go live, I'm all fucking jittery and all that good shit, so things take time. We're gonna be reading a fucking book. I gotta get comfy, loosened up, not all goofy. You know how it goes. You loosen up as you go. On the plus side, the coffee is delightful. Oh my god. I have ice cream. I might have ice cream coffee here in a moment.
Yeah, I'm such a good mom. I never yell at my
Just to be funny, I'm actually gonna post my link in these goober in this fucking thing with these assholes. Oh, it didn't let me right there. So, in a group chat with my coworkers, I told them I was about to go live reading a book, and a couple of them were talking shit. Just to be funny, I'm gonna send them the live. These fuckers.
And that is on video, folks.
That's too funny. Alright, so now we're gonna get the chat back in order. They're immediately talking shit. They're stuck at work. I happen to get the day off. And they were going back and forth about work and the weather and shit like that. And I sent them a picture of me sipping coffee. They've been talking shit ever since. That's just the way it's got to be sometimes. There's just no way around it. Sometimes you're going to be a douchebag to your coworkers. Sometimes your coworkers get messing with the phone. And again, coffee, delightful. If you're not into coffee, I don't know what you're doing with your life. Coffee is life. Alright. Of course, the camera's already. Time now, camera. Come on. There's like just enough lag in it right now. Where it's like I'm afraid of double tapping all the buttons. I hate that. Alright, anyhow. Here we go. Starting with the prologue. First of all, it was October. Rare month for boys. Not that all months are great. There be bad and good, as the pirates say. Taco September. Taco? That's something on the page. Somebody's gotten something on. I haven't even opened this. Since I've had it from the library forever. And I just, for whatever reason, I've been busy and doing a bunch of other random shit. More or less haven't even opened this book. And the library hit me up and were like, hey man, you're letting it ride too long. We're about to start charging you. And it made me read it. I was goofing off the computer today, and I was just like, let's do the thing. All right. First of all, it was October. Rare month for bull. Not that all months are rare. There be bad and good, pirates say. Take September, the bad month. School begins. Consider August a good month. School hasn't begun. July. Well, July's really fine. There's no chance on the wolf. June, no doubting it. June's best of all. For the school doors swing wide and September's a billion years old. But you take October, now. School's been on a month, and you're riding easier in the rain. Jogging along. Time to think of the garbage dump on the old porch. Very ape costume. The last night of. And if it's around October 20th and everything's smoky smelling, sky orange. Seems Halloween will never come in a ball of broomsticks and soft flap of sheets around. The one strains wild, dark, long. Halloween came. 1 year Halloween came on October 24th, 3 hours before. At that time, James Nightshade of 7 Oak Street was 13 years, 11 months, 23 days old. Next door, William Holloway was 13 years, 24 days old. Both touched towards 14. It almost trembled in. And that was the October week when they grew up overnight and never. My phone went off. God, why does my camera keep getting blurred out? I think I've got the light in a bad spot. I'm gonna fuck with the light after. It almost trembled in their hands. And that was the October week when they grew up overnight and were never so young anymore. Chapter 1, Arrivals. Gotta do something about fucking blurry camera. Maybe I myself am too close to the camera. It's a lot blurrier. In some capacity, causing it to happen. Incredibly unfortunate. It doesn't help that this is kind of a small book. I don't know if you guys see, but it's a little one. The print is small and everything to that effect. Excuse me. Chapter 1. The seller of lightning rods arrived just ahead of the storm. He came along the street of Greentown, Illinois, in the late cloudy October sky, sneaking glances over his shoulder. Somewhere not so far back, vast lightnings stomped the earth. Somewhere, a storm like a great beast with terrible teeth could not be denied. So the salesman jangled and clanged his huge leather kit, in which oversized puzzles of ironmongery. That's a weird word. Of ironmongery. It's got, I don't know. That's a weird fucking word I've never seen before. Lay unseen, but with his tongue conjured from door to door until he came at last to a lawn which was cut all wrong. No, not the grass. The salesman lifted his gaze, but 2 boys far up the gentle slope, lying on the grass, of a like size and general shape. The boys sat carving twig whistles, talking of olden or future times, content with having left their fingerprints on every movable object in Greentown during summer past, and their footprint on every open path between here and between here and the lake, and there in the river since school began. "Howdy, boys," called the man, all dressed in storm-colored clothes. "Folks home?" The boys shook their heads. Excuse me. "Got any money yourselves?" The boys shook their heads. Well, the salesman walked about 3 feet, stopped and hunched his shoulders. Suddenly he seemed aware of house windows or the cold sky staring at his neck. Turned slowly, sniffing the air. Wind rattled the empty. I can hear myself too much. That's another thing. It's annoying. Let's do that. Turn that down a little bit. I want to be able to hear it whenever there was hosting or anything to that effect. But it's just too much hearing. The feedback is fucking me up because I'm speaking and reading at the same time. Excuse me. Ooh, we got all fucked up there. What happened? I'm sorry. That's funny. He turned slowly, sniffing the air. Wind rattled the empty trees. Sunlight, breaking through a small rift in the clouds, minted a last few oak leaves all gold. But the sun vanished. The coins were spent. The air blew gray. The salesman shook himself from the spell. The salesman edged slowly up the lawn. "Boy," he said. What's your name? The first boy, with hair as blonde-white as milk thistle, shut up one eye, I don't know why that threw me off too, tilted his head and looked at the salesman with a single eye as open, bright, and clear as a drop of summer rain. Will, he said, William Holloway. The storm gentleman turned. And you? The second boy did not move, but lay stomach down in the autumn grass, debating as if he might make up a name. His hair was wild, thick, in the glossy color of waxed chestnuts. His eyes, fixed to some distant point within himself, were mint rock crystal green. Last he put a blade of dry grass in his casual mouth. Jim Nightshade, he said. The storm salesman nodded as if he had known it all along. Nightshade? That's quite a name. And only fitting, said Will Holloway. I was born 1 minute before midnight, October 13th. Jim was born 1 minute after midnight, which means it's October 31st. Halloween, said Jim. By their voices, the boys had told the tale all their lives, proud of their mothers, living house next to house, running for the hospital together. Darkness. What is going on? Oh, I'm sorry, dankness. What am I thinking? I appreciate you. The tabbeting. Hell yeah. There we go. It's like, hypothetically, the shout out will work properly. I appreciate you. Living house next to house, running for the hospital together, bringing suns into the world seconds apart, one light, one dark. There was a history of mutual celebration behind them. Each year, Will lit the candles on a single cake at 1 minute to midnight. Jim at 1 minute after midnight. I hear wife's phone ring. They'll leave a message. I am not running for the phone right now. What a busy, 12 minutes. All kinds of shit has happened. But yeah, man, I appreciate that love too, dude. 100% appreciate you dropping in and hitting the chat. Yeah. Jim, at 1 minute after, with the last day of the month began, blew them out. So much, Will said excitedly. So much, Jim agreed to silently. So much, the salesman, running before the storm, but poised here uncertainly, heard looking from face to face. Holloway, Nightshade. No money, you say? The man, grieved by his own conceitedness, rummaged in his leathery bag and seized forth an iron contraption. Take this, free. Why, one of those houses will be struck by lightning. Without this rod, bang! Fire and ash, roast pork and cinders, grab. The salesman released the rod. Jim did not move, but Will caught the iron and gasped. Boy, it's heavy and funny looking. Never seen a lightning rod like this. Look, Jim. And Jim, at last, stretched like a cat and turned his head. His green eyes got big, very narrow. The metal thing was hammered and shaped half crescent, half cross. Around the rim and the main rod, little curlicues. That's got to be the word. Curlicues and doohingies. That's so. It's so funny reading an old book with the goofy older words that are just out of circulation. I dig it. Had been soldered on later. The entire surface of the rod was finely scratched and etched with strange languages, names that could tie the tongue or break the jaw, numerals that added to incomprehensible sums, pictographs of insect animals, all bristle, chaff, and claw. That's Egyptian. Jim pointed his nose at a bug soldered on the iron. Scarab beetle. So it is, boy. Jim squinted in those. Boeotian hen tracks. Right. Why? Asked Jim. Why? Said the man. Why the Egyptians? Arabic, Abyssinian, Cactau. Well, what tongue does the wind talk? What nationality is a storm? What country do rains come from? What color is lightning? Where does thunder go when it dies? Boys, you got to be ready in every dialect, with every shape and form to hex the St. Elmo's fires, the balls of blue light that prowl the earth like sizzling cats. I got the only lightning rods in the world to hear feel, I don't know why that threw me. They hear, feel, know, and sass back any storm. No matter what tongue, voice, or sign, no foreign thunder so loud this rod can't soft talk it. That's great. But Will was staring beyond the man now. Which, he said. Which house will it strike? Which? Hold on. Wait. The salesman searching deep in their faces. Some folks draw lightning, suck it like cats suck baby's breath. Some folks' polarities are negative, some positive. Some glow in the dark, some snuff it out, you know. Two of you, What makes you so sure lightning will strike anywhere around here? Said Jim suddenly, his eyes bright. The salesman almost flinched. Why, I got a nose, an ear, an eye. Both those houses, their timbers, listen. They listen. Maybe their houses leaned under the cool afternoon. Maybe not. Lightning needs channels, like rivers, to run in. One of those attics is a dry river bottom, itching to let lightning pour through tonight. Tonight. Jim sat up happily. No ordinary storm, said the salesman. Hey, you with the gorgeous. Any chance I can get you to do me an enormous fucking favor? You hit me up with some coffee?
Yeah.
Fucking here. Undeserving of your love and affection. Tom, Fury tells you. It's interesting. No ordinary storm, said the salesman. Tom, Fury tells you. I don't understand that one. It says Tom, Fury tells you. Oh, maybe it says Tom. There's no comma there. The emphasis was kind of a little lost there. It's gotta be. Tom, Fury tells you. Fury, ain't that a fine name for one who sells lightning rods? Did I take the name? No. Did the name fire me to my occupations? Yes. Growing up, I saw cloudy fires jumping the world, making men hop and hide. Tonight I'll chart hurricanes, map storms, then run ahead shaking my... Thank you. Coffee delivered. I appreciate you. Coffee is the life, boys and girls.
Kyle, you should improve upon.
What a fucking delight. What a fucking delight. Alright. Did I take the name? No. Did the name fire me to my occupations? Yes. Growing up, I saw cloudy fires jumping the world, making men hop and hide. I thought I'd chart hurricanes, map storms, then run ahead, shaking my iron cudgels, my miraculous defenders in my fist. I've shielded and made snug safe 100,000, count 'em, God-fearing homes. So when I tell you boys you're in dire need, listen, climb that roof, nail this rod high, ground it in the good earth before nightfall. But which house? Which? Asked Will. The salesman reared off, blew his nose in a gray kerchief, then walked slowly across the lawn as if approaching a huge time bomb that ticked silently there. He touched Will's front porch newels, which I assume is some part of the fucking house bracket that I'm just unaware of. I don't know what the hell that word is. He ran his hand over a post of floorboard and shut his eyes and leaned against the house to let its bones speak to him. Then, hesitant, he made his cautious way to Jim's house next door. Jim stood up to watch. The salesman put his hand out to the touch, to stroke, to quiver his fingertips on the old paint. This, he said, at last, is the one. Jim looked proud. Without looking back, the salesman said, Jim Nightshade, this your place? Mine, said Jim. I should have known, said the man. Hey, what about me, said Will. The salesman snuffed at Will's house. No. Oh, a few sparks to jump on your rain spouts. But the real show's next door, here at the Nightshades. Well... The salesman hurried back across the lawn to seize his huge leather bag. I'm on my way. Storm's coming. Don't wait, Jim boy, otherwise, BAM! You'll be found. Your nickels, dimes, Indian heads fused by electroplating. Abe Lincoln melted into Miss Columbia's eagles plucked raw on the backs of quarters, all run to quicksilvers on your jeans. That was very descriptive about the coins. That was interesting. More. Any boy hit by lightning, lift his lid, and there in his eyeballs, pretty as the Lord's Prayer on a pin, find the last scene the boy ever saw. A box brownie photo, by God, of that fire climbing down the sky to blow you like a penny whistle. Psych your soul back up along the bright stair. Get, boy, hammer it high, or you're dead come done. And jangling his case full of iron rods, the salesman wheeled about and charged down the walk, blinking wildly at the sky, the roof, the trees, at last closing his eyes, moving, sniffing, muttering. Yes, bad. Here it comes. Feel it. Way off now, but running fast. The man in the storm dark clothes was gone. His cloud-colored hat pulled down over his eyes, and the trees rustled, and the sky seemed very old suddenly. Jim and Will stood testing the wind to see if they could smell electricity. The lightning rod followed between them. Jim, said Will. Don't stand there. Your house, he said. You're going to nail the rod, aren't you? No, smiled Jim. Why spoil the fun? Fun? You crazy? I'll get the ladder. You the hammer, some nails and wire. But Jim did not move. Will broke and ran. He came back with the ladder. Jim, think of your mom. You want her... My cat just, lost her fucking mind and bolted next to me and it startled me. Just took the fuck off. Will broke and ran. He came back with the ladder. They're going apeshit. Jim, thank you for your mom. You want her burnt? Will climbed the side of the house alone and looked down. Slowly, Jim moved to the ladder below and started up. Thunder sounded far off in the cloud-shaped hills. The air smelled fresh and raw on top of Jim Nightshade's roof. What the hell are you doing? God! Knocked a bunch of shit over. I'm gonna have to go fix that. Even Jim admitted that. That was the last fucking sentence. Give me a second. God damn it. Cat! Get off my shit. Jesus. So many things. So many things, you guys. I apologize. Been incredibly busy. That coffee, though. Right. There's nothing in the living world like books. Oh, that's cool. There's nothing in the living world like books on water cures, deaths of 1,000 slices, or pouring white-hot lava off castle walls on drolls and mountebanks? I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be. So said Jim Nightingale. That's all he read. If it wasn't how to burgle the First National, it was how to build catapults, shape black bumbershoes into lurking bat costumes for Cabbage Night. Jim breathed it out all fine, and he breathed it in. With the lightning rod nailed to Jim's roof, Will proud and Jim ashamed of what he considered mutual cowardice in the late of the day. Supper over, it was late. It was time, for their weekly jog to the library. Like all boys, they never walked anywhere. They named a goal and lit for it. Scissors at elbows. Nobody won. Nobody wanted to win, that's what it was in their friendship. They just wanted to run forever, shadow and shadow. Their hands slapped library door handles together. Their chests broke track tapes together. I see. Their tennis shoes beat parallel pony tracks over lawns, trimmed bushes, squirreled trees. No one, I don't know why it made me laugh. No one losing, both winning, thus saving their friendship for other times of loss. The fucking cord came down. It fell on my arm. Like I felt it when I was raiding. I don't know what happened there. Diesel Smoke! What's up, dude? Now I've sat my coffee in the way of my fucking keyboard. We'll drop one for Mrs. Killall as well. Because, you know, do these things. I am reading Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury. It's like a classic. So the last year and a half, I've been more or less looking at a couple of lists online of scariest novels and classic horror novels that are must reads in the horror novel world and stuff like that. And what I do is I look at 2 or 3 or 4 of these lists, and when I find books that are on multiple lists, I read them. Sometimes I go with ones that are pretty new and extreme and shit like that, and sometimes I go with classics. I have to do it with the classic this time. And then work got all crazy, and I just haven't realistically read the book. I've had it forever. The library emailed me this morning and was like, "You've had this book forever. We're about to start hitting you with late fees." I happen to be off work today, and here we are. I thought about doing it a lot earlier. I just didn't commit to it. And then as the day went on, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna. Then here we are. Excuse me. So yeah, that's what happened there. So it was on this night that blew warm, then cool, as they let the wind take them down. I heard something just pop up with a hello. Did. So we want to make sure we're not missing out on anything while we're between things. See, we got the host spot from Senadani. Appreciate you. Tetka TV. Everybody dropping in with the host spot. How we doing today? Hope everybody's having a good one. So it was on this night that blew warm, then cool, as they let the wind take them downtown at 8 o'clock. They felt the wings on their fingers and elbows flying, then suddenly plunged in new sweeps of air. The clear autumn river flung them headlong where they must go. Up steps 3, 6, 9, 12, slap their palms at the library door. Jim and Will grinned at each other. It was all so good, these blowing quiet October nights, in the library waiting inside now with its screen. It's funny because I was just talking about the library. That's fucking funny. Like, that's really funny. I actually forgot they were running to the library. That's so funny. Their palms at the library door. Jim and Will grinned at each other. It was all so good, these blowing quiet October nights, in the library waiting inside now with its green shaded lamps and papyrus dust. Papyrus being old school paper, I believe. Paper was made out of papyrus. I think. I can't remember. Jim listened. What's that? What, the wind? Like music. Jim squinted at the horizon. Don't hear no music. Jim shook his head. Gone. Or it wasn't even there. Come on. They opened the door and stepped in. They stopped. The library deeps lay waiting for them. Out in the world, not much happened. But here in the special night, a land bricked with paper and leather, anything might happen. Always did. Listen. You hear 10,000 people screaming so high only dogs feathered their ears. That's an interesting way to put that. A million folk ran toting cannons, sharpening guillotines, Chinese 4 abreast, marched on forever, invisible, silent, yes, but Jim and Will had the gift of ears and noses as well as the gift of tongues. This was a factory of spices from far countries. Here alien desserts slumbered, excuse me, the way that was cut off, it looked funky. I hate it when there's like a weird misprint in the... Like, you ever read a book and you can see where like the letter's only halfway there? Sometimes that'll fuck you all up when it happens to split the word between 2 lines. That's kind of how that went. Slumbered. Up front was the desk where the nice old lady, Miss Watrous, purple stamped your books, but down off away there to Antarctica, the Congo, where went Miss Wills, the other librarian, through outer Mongolia, calmly toting fragments of paping in Yokohama and celebs. I don't know what that is. Way down the 3rd book corridor, an oldish man whispered. It's so weird how the writing is right here. I don't know why. It's like, the way it's descriptive is fucking me all up. Like, it's weirdly descriptive and it just doesn't flow like modern speaking. I had that happen when I was reading, what was it? Lord of the Flies. That's what it was. I read Lord of the Flies, and I read I Am Legend recently, and both of those were written in like a manner where it just didn't flow like we currently speak, and it's like just enough to fuck with you. Anyhow, book corridor, an oldish man whispered his broom along the dark, mounding the fallen spices. Will stared. It was always a surprise, that old man. His work, his name. That's Charles William Halloway. Don't really read unless it's Lick Manual or something. I don't even know what that is. I don't know what Lick Manual is. That sounds like a porn magazine. I'm sure that's not the case, but that's first impressions. I see. That makes more sense. Sorry, I wasn't trying to be like that. I was reading really heavily, and then I just haven't, since stuff has gotten really hectic with work, which it's realistically just calmed down because we just got past Christmas. You know what I mean? I was reading a lot there for a while, but slowed down quite a bit now that I'm working a lot. We'll see. Now that hypothetically scheduling is a lot more chill, in theory I'll have some more free time, but at the same time I may also get shipped to other towns to work and be equally as tied up. It's hard fucking telling.
How I would react to getting robbed.
That's Charles William Halloway, thought Will. Not grandfather, not far-wandering ancient uncle, as some might think, but my father. So looking back down the corridor, was Dad shocked to see... I don't know. I don't know where we just came into this scenario anyway. I almost feel like it's the kid imagining right here. It's interesting how this just fell off. I've also stopped and spoke a couple times, but still, it's interesting. Anyhow, but my father. So looking back down the corridor, was Dad shocked to see he owned a son who visited this separate 20 fathoms deep world. Dad always seemed stunned when Will rose up before him, as if they had met a lifetime ago. One had grown old while the other stayed young, and this fact stood far between. And this fact stood between, excuse me, far off. The old man smiled. They approached each other carefully. Is that you, Will? Grown an inch since this morning. Charles Halloway shifted his gaze. Jim, eyes darker, cheeks paler. You burn yourself at both ends, Jim? Heck, said Jim. No such place as heck. Hell's right here Hell's right here under for Allegory. I don't know what the fuck that word is. Then it says allegories beyond me, said Jim. So there's those words together. You should read a book called The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. I am not familiar with that. I typically do horror. Honestly, I usually go pretty hardcore horror. A lot of these let's say classic books, because this book is old. Yeah, this book is like from the 60s. A lot of these books are a lot more mellow in terms of god-awful horror content, let's just say. But they're a lot more descriptive storytelling, you know what I mean? It's like Lord of the Rings with scary stuff, just as like a goofy comparison there. But typically, I read pretty hardcore horror novels. I like scary stuff. I do occasionally read fantasy, stuff like that. I get down on sci-fi fantasy stuff, space fantasy, occasionally stuff with magic and elves and whatnot. I like a good story. A lot of times I like a story about traveling and adventuring from place to place. I don't know why. I really like that. I've just noticed it theme-wise.
Next week.
What you just put in the toilet was a horror story. Well, glad that we got to share that moment.
What do you do?
Well, but what I was getting at is, I don't do anything, nonfiction, man. I don't fucking read nonfiction stuff. I read fictitious stuff, and typically I don't like stuff to be particularly based in the real world. Like, real world blows enough as it is. I like the settings to be far off. Right on. Well, hopefully it's violent and dark. Like, I enjoyed Prince of Thorns. I read that whole series, I guess. But I read that initial trilogy in the last year or two, and that was a really good one. I kind of wish I'd done that one on stream, but it was kind of before I was doing the stream stuff, seriously. A lot of S words and syllables together. But you know, it's always a good time, dude. Right on. I really enjoy reading. I don't know about you guys, but it's a great hobby, and it keeps you sharp. You know what I mean? Sorry, I realized that video stuff was about. But you know, to each their own. I've got nothing against anybody and their delights. You know what I mean? Any kind of outlets are healthy unless they're incredibly awful. I think we were just talking about audiobooks recently, you and I. I'm probably gonna get into audiobooks again after this read. Primarily because, you know, doing the mailman thing, I pretty much walk around with headphones all day. I should really start doing books instead of just listening to fucking cameras and
Magic.
Try getting up.
I don't know why my camera. Yeah, I've definitely done things. I've definitely done audiobooks before. It's been a few years, but I've enjoyed it in the past. I've done the Kindle thing, like on my phone. I'm pissed when they got bought out by Amazon. I lost my whole library. That's unfortunate. That is 100% unfortunate. You know, I'm sorry that happened to you. That's brutal. It always sucks to lose things. But, you know, it's cool that you do the audiobook thing, man. That's really, again, that's really healthy. I always think that's healthy and something that you should do as much. Yeah. I think you can, a lot of times, like our library here in town, you can actually rent audiobooks. I think you more or less just check them out, and it's like a timer before you can't use it anymore. I'm not entirely sure how it works. It's got to be something to that effect, because they say you could do but that's cool, man. It's a good thing to do. You should, you know, maintain that. You know what I'm saying? Like, good for you. It's cool to have the book thing in common with people because I don't know about you, and honestly, I'm not even entirely sure how old you are. I think I'm a little bit older than you. I feel like most people don't read. Um, you don't carry a Sony Discman to work. Don't listen to a CD. No, I would have to do an ebook. I'm talking about the downloading ebook. That's just like we happen to have a particularly nice library. As small as like we live in a really small town, and they have a shockingly nice library for as small as the town is. It's a phenomenal library. Huge fan. 10 out of 10. Anyhow, let's do this. Far off, the old man smiled. They approached each other carefully. Is that you, Will? Grown an inch since this morning. Charles Halloway shifted his gaze. Jim, eyes darker, cheeks paler. You burn yourself at both ends, Jim? Heck, said Jim. No such place as heck, but hell's right here under a foot or Allegheny. Allegories behind me. I still don't understand the play right there. We live in a small town. We have one red light. Damn. Ours isn't quite that small. We definitely have like some lights in town, but we don't. There ain't a lot. You know what I mean? Like we definitely live in a pretty small town. There's only a couple lights if you go one direction or the other. You know what I mean? Like you can get through town in like 5 lights, maybe 10. You know. Sounds like you're in an even smaller town. Fucking A. There we go. Allegories beyond me, said Jim. How stupid of me, Dad laughed. I mean, Dante, look at this. Pictures by Mr. Dorr, showing all the aspects. Hell never looked better. Here's souls sunk to their gills in slime. There's someone upside down, wrong side out. Boy, howdy. Jim eyed the pages 2 different ways, then thumbed on. Got any dinosaur pictures? Dad shook his head. That's over in the next aisle. He strolled them around and reached out. Here are the pterodactyl kinds of destruction. Or what about Drums of Doom, the saga of the thunderous lips? Pep you up, Jim? I'm pepped. Dad winked at Will. Will winked back. They stood now, a boy with corn-colored hair and a man with moon-white hair. A boy with a summer apple, a man with a winter apple face. That was so weird. Dad thought. Will, why, he looks like me in a smashed mirror. And suddenly, Will remembered nights rising at 2 in the morning to go to the bathroom and spying across town to see the one single light in the high library window. And no, Dad had lingered on late, murmuring under these green jungle lamps. It made Will sad and funny to see that light. To know that the old man he stopped to change the world, his father, was here in all this shadow. Will, said the old man, who was also a janitor, who happened to be his father. What about you? Huh? He shook himself. Need a white hat or a black hat book? Hats, said Will. Well, Jim, they preambulated. I think just talking. You think our population is like 200? Wow. That is an itty bitty fucking town. My town is definitely tens, like exponentially bigger than that, should I say. I definitely don't live in a town that small. There's some towns that small between here and the next big town. If that makes sense. How it goes. Country town. There's all cornfields between the cities and little family towns, more or less, between. Yeah, but the good thing is that I'm either 15 minutes away from everything. Exactly. I can totally hear that. It's kind of like that where I'm at, too. We live like 30 minutes away from like 4 major towns and like an hour away from the capital. You know what I mean? So that's how it goes. After living in a big town, after growing up, should I say, in big towns in Florida and stuff like that, I appreciate living in a small town. And I don't know if I could go back to the big city after living in the small town. About to drive to the big city right now. Right on. What's up with that? Moving on. They perambulated. Dad running his fingers along the book spines. He wears the black 10-gallon hats and reads books to fit. Middle name's Moriarty. Right? Moriarty. That's a weird name. Right, Jim? Any day now, he'll move up from Fu Manchu to Machiavelli here. medium-sized dark fedora, or over along to Dr. Fastius extra-large black Stetson. That leaves the white hat boys to you. Will, here's Gandhi, next door to St. Thomas. The next level, well, Buddha. You don't mind, said Will. I'll settle for the mysterious island. What? Asked Jim, scowling. Is all this talk about white and black hats? Dad handed Jules Verne to Will. It's just a long time ago. I had to decide myself which collar I'd wear. So, said Jim, which did you pick? Dad looked surprised and he laughed uneasily. Since you need to ask Jim, you make me wonder. Will, tell Mom I'll be home soon. Get out of here, both of you. Miss Watrous, he called softly to the library desk. Dinosaurs and mysterious islands coming up. Door slammed. Outside, a weather of stars rang clear in an ocean sky. Heck, Jim sniffled north. Jim sniffled south. Where's the storm? That darn salesman promised. I just got to watch the lightning fizzle down my drain pipes. Will let the wind ruffle and fit his clothes, his skin, his hair, and they said faintly, it'll be here by morning. Who says? The huckleberries all down my arms, they say. The wind flew by, a similar kite. Will swooped to follow. Gonna get you a cheesesteak. Hell yeah, man. Steak it up. Get yourself a cheesesteak. Do it. Fucking do it. Watching the boys vanish away, Charles Holloway suppressed a sudden urge to run with them. Make the path. He knew what the wind was doing to them, where it was taking them, to all the secret places never secret at all. Secret again in life. Somewhere in him a shadow turned mournful. You had to run with a knife. To the sadness could not. Look, he thought. Will runs because it's its own exercise. Jim runs because something's up ahead of him. But strangely, they do run together. What's the answer, he wanted, walking through putting out the light. Putting out the light. Putting out the light. Is it all the world? Why are some people all topper fit, scraping, all antennas shivering, one big gang, eternal nodding, slipping, square nodding themselves? They stroke a furnace all their lives, sweat their lips, shine their faces, started to the Caesars lean and the hungry feet. Dark, who only stand in. That's Jim. All bramble hair and itchweed. Itchweed. And Will. Why, he's the last peach, high on a summer tree. Some boys walk by and you cry, seeing them. They feel good, they look good, they are good. Oh, they're not above peeing off a bridge or stealing an occasional dime store pencil sharpener. It's not that. It's just, seeing them pass. That's how they'll be all their life. They'll get hit, hurt, cut, bruised, and always wonder why. Why does it happen? How can it happen? Jim, now, he knows it happens. He watches for it happening. He sees the start. He sees it finish. He licks the wounds he expected. He never asks why. He knows. Always knows. Someone knew before him a long time ago. Someone who had wolves or pets and lions for night. Conversants? That's not a fucking word I've ever read before. Hell, Jim doesn't know with his mind, but his body knows, and while Jim's putting a bandage on it, laid to scratch, Jim's ducking, weak, bouncing away from the blow which must... There they go. Jim running slower to stay with Will. Will running faster to stay with Jim. Jim breaking 2 windows in a haunted house because Will's along. Will breaking 1 window instead of none because Jim's watching. God, how we get our fingers in each other's clay. That's friendship. Each playing the potter to see the shapes we can make each other. Of the others. Jim, Will, he thought, strangers. Go on. I'll catch up someday. The library door gasped open, slammed. 5 minutes later, he turned into the corner saloon for nightly one and only time to hear a man say, I read when alcohol was invented, the Italians thought it was the big thing they'd been looking for centuries, the elixir of life. Did you know that? Excuse me. No, the bartender's back was turned. Sure, the man went on. Distilled wine, 9th to 10th century. Looked like water, but it burnt. I mean, it not only burnt the mouth and stomach, but you set it with fire, so they thought they'd mixed water and fire water. The elixir vitae. My God. Maybe they weren't so far wrong, thinking it was cure-all, the thing that worked miracles. A drink? I don't need it, said Holloway. Someone inside me does. Who? Well, I once was, thought Holloway, who runs like the leaf down the sidewalk. But he couldn't say that. So he drank. Eyes shut. Listening to hear, a thing inside turned over, rustling in the deep, stacking for, but never burned. Chapter 4. Will stopped. Excuse me. Will stopped. Will looked at the Friday night town. It seemed when the first stroke of 9 banged from the big courthouse clock, all the lights were on, businesses humming in the shops. By the time the last stroke of 9 shook everyone's fillings in their teeth, in his teeth, the barbers had yanked off the sheets, powdered the customers, trotted them for the druggists? The druggist. Apparently that was the word for pharmacist before pharmacist. That's interesting. The druggist fountain had stopped fizzing like a nest of snakes. The insect neons everywhere had ceased buzzing. The vast glittering acreage of the dime store with its 10 billion metal bits and paper oddments waiting to be fished over suddenly blocked. Shades slithered, doors boomed, keys rattled their bones in their locks. People fled with hordes of torn newspaper. Mice nibbled their heels. Bang! They were gone. Boy, yelled Will. Folks run like they thought the storm was here. It is, Jim. Us! The stomp pound thundered over iron gates, street, steel, trap door, past a dozen unlit shops, a dozen half-lit, a dozen dying dark. The city was dead as they United, excuse me, I thought it said uniform for some reason. The United Cigar Store corner. Say a wooden Cherokee guide in darkness by him. Hey, Mr. Tetley, the proprietor, peered over the Indian's shoulder. Scare you boys? Nah, but Will shivered, feeling cold tidal waves of strange rain down the prairie as on a deserted shore. When the lightning filled the town, he wanted to be layered under 16 blankets and a pillow. Mr. Tetley, said Will quietly. For now there were 2 wooden Indians upright in tobacco darkness. Mr. Tetley, amidst the jest, had frozen, mouth open, listening. Mr. Tetley, he heard something far away on the wind. Couldn't say what it was. Off. They did not see them. Not move. He did not see them, excuse me. He did not move. He only listened. They left him. 4th empty block from the library. Came upon a 3rd. Mr. Corsetti in front of the barber shop, his door key in his trembling finger, did not see them stop. Had stopped them. A teardrop. It moved, shining down Mr. Crennaman's cheek. Mr. Corsetti's left cheek. I don't know how to pronounce that one. Left cheek. He breathed heavily. Corsetti, you fool. Something happens. Nothing happens. You cry like a baby. Mr. Corsetti took a trembling breath. Sniffling. Snuffing. Don't you smell it? Jim and Will sniffed. Licorice. Heck no. Cotton candy. I haven't smelled that in years, said Mr. Corsetti. Jim snorted. It's around. Yes, but who notices? When? How my nose tells me? Breathe, and I'm crying. Why? Because I remember how a long time ago boys ate that stuff. Why haven't I stopped to think and smell the last 30 years? You're busy, Mr. Corsetti. You haven't got time. Time. Mr. Corsetti wiped his eyes. Where does the smell come from? Where does the smell come from? So funny. There's no place in town that sells cotton candy. Only circuses. Hey, said Will. That's right. Will, Corsetti is done crying. The barber blew his nose, turned to lock his shop door. As he did this, Will watched the barber pole whirl its red serpentine up out of nothing. Leaning his gaze around, rising to vanish into more nothing. On countless noons, Will had stood there trying to unravel the ribbon. Watch. What's up, girlfriend? Watch it come go in without it. Mr. Corsetti put his hand to the light switch under the spinning pole. Don't, said Will, then murmuring. Don't turn it off. Mr. Corsetti looked at the pole, as if freshly aware of its miraculous properties. He nodded, gently, his eyes soft. Where does it come from? Where does it go, eh? Who knows? Not you, not him, not me. Oh, the mysteries. Oh, shit. Thank you. You're far too good. Love you. Hell yeah! I feel I got coffee all. Delightful. Fucking delightful. Where does it come from? Where does it go, eh? Who knows? Not him. Not him, not me. Oh, the mysteries, by God. Oh, we'll leave it on. It's good to know, thought Will. It'll be running until dawn, winding up from nothing, winding away to nothing, while we sleep. Good night. And they left him behind in a wind that very faintly smelled of licorice and cotton. Charles Holloway put his hand to the saloons, yes, double swing doors, hesitant, as if the gray hairs on the back of his hand, like antennae, had felt something beyond a slide by the October night. Perhaps great fires burned somewhere, and their furnace blasts warned him not to step forward. Another ice age had loomed across the land. Its freezing bulk might already have laid waste a billion people in the hour. Perhaps time itself was draining off down in a mist of glass, with powder darkness falling after to bury all. Or maybe it was only that man in the dark, seen through the saloon window across the street. Holy fucking shit. That was so goddamn alarming. Yeah, that fucked me all up. That was good. You got me with that one. You definitely got me with that one. Solid one. It's a good one. Where the fuck were we? Okay. 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 Across the street, great paper rolls under one arm, brush and bucket in his free hand, the man was whistling a tune very far away. It was a tune from another season, one that never ceased making Charles Holloway sad. When the song was incongruous. I think just killed it on that word. For October, I could be wrong. But immensely moving, overwhelming. What day or what month it was sung. I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carols play. And wind and sweet their words repeat of peace on earth. There you go. Lovely. Charles Holloway shivered. Suddenly there was an old sense of terrifying vision, of wanting to laugh and cry together. He saw the innocence of the earth wandering the snowy streets before Christmas, among all the tired men and women whose faces were dirty with unwashed of sin, and smashed like small windows by life that, without warning, ran, hid, came back, and hid it. They pealed the bells more. God is not dead, or doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, right prevail, with peace on earth, good will to men. I expected it to rhyme again, and it didn't. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing? Okay, we'll post it. We'll post the clip. We'll post the clip. Right after I try to fix the camera for the 50th fucking time. Shit. Actually, I went to Facebook instead of Twitter. So I'm gonna throw that on Twitter real quick because, you know, that's what. We do the fucking thing. Boom. Okay.
I think my friend is hiding something from me. When quarantine started,
Boom. Right. We retweeted that shit.
I got a weird text from him last night, so this morning when he left for work, I logged into his computer.
Yeah.
I started looking through his
Retweeting.
files, but I couldn't find anything.
The retweeting.
It made my heart drop. It was a photo slideshow titled
Hell yes.
And Her.
Okay.
I opened it.
The whistling died. Charles Holloway stepped out. Far up ahead, the man who had whistled the tune was moving his arms, but silently
Always trust
working.
your boys.
Now he vanished into the
Plus,
open
son, if you got
shop.
ride or die
Charles
boys,
Holloway, not knowing why, crossed the street to watch the man, pasting up one of the posters inside the store. Now the man stepped out the door with his brush, his paste bucket, rolled papers, his eyes a fierce, lustful shine. Fixed on Charles Holloway, smiling, he gestured an open hand. Holloway stared. The palm of that hand was covered in fine black silken hair. It looked like the hand clenched tight and waved. The man swept around the corner. Charles Holloway, stunned, flushed with sudden summer heat, swayed, and turned to gaze into the empty shop. Two sawhorses stood parallel to each other under a single spotlight. Placed under these two sawhorses, like a funeral of snow and crystal, was a block of ice 6 feet long. It shone dimly with its own effulgence. I'm not sure how that one goes. And its color was a great cool gem resting there in the dark. On a little white placard on the side near the window, the following calligraphic message could be read by Camplight. Cougar and Dark's Pandemonium Shadow Show. Fantasini Marionette Circus and your Plain Meadow Carnival arriving immediately. Here on display, one of our many attractions, the most beautiful woman in the world. Holloway's eyes leaped closer on the inside of the window. The most beautiful woman in the world. And back to the cold, long block of ice. It was such a block of ice, as he remembered from traveling magician shows when he was a boy. When the local ice company drew it a chunk of winter in which, for 12 hours on end, frost made its lay embedded. On display while people watched and committed and comedies toppled down the raw white screen. Coming attractions came and went, and at last the pale ladies slid forth, all rhymed, chipped free by aspiring sorcerers to be led off smiling into the dark behind the curtains. I don't know why that again was worded funkily. That messed with me. I don't know what keeps happening with my camera. All I can think is I keep leaning in too much and making the reflection off my head cause the camera to focusing. So I can't find the happy medium where I need to sit. Bear with. Otherwise, I'll have to keep looking at the camera like that. I don't know why. It drives me nuts with the camera. In theory, that's kind of got to be what's happening. The most. Is this still a continuation? Did I skip too many pages? Okay. The most beautiful woman in the world. And yet this vast chunk of wintry, not wintry, but wintry, glass held nothing but frozen river water. No, not quite empty. Holloway felt his heart pound one special time within the huge winter gym. Was there not a special vacuum, a voluptuous hollow, a prolonged emptiness which undulated from tip to toe of the ice? Wasn't this vacuum, this emptiness waiting to be filled with summer flesh, was it not shaped something like a woman? Yes, the ice and the lovely hollows, the horizontal flow of emptiness within the ice, the lovely nothingness, the exquisite flow of an invisible mermaid daring the ice to capture it. The ice was cold. The emptiness within the ice was warm, and wanted to go away from here. But Charles Holloway stood in the strange night for a long time looking at the empty shop and the two sawhorses, old, waiting Arctic coffins. They're like a vast star of India in the dark. Jim Nightshade stopped in the corner of Hickory and Main, breathing easily, his eyes fixed tenderly on the leafy darkness of Hickory Street. Will? No. Will stopped, surprised at his own violence. Because he said no. So apparently he didn't say no. Apparently he said no! It's just there. The fifth house. Just 1 minute, Will, Jim pleaded softly. Minute? Will glanced down the street, which was the street of the theater. Until this summer, it had been an ordinary street, where they stole peaches, plums, and apricots, each in its day. But late in August, while they were... I don't know what What? What? I don't know what he's barking at. There ain't a fucking thing going on. You know damn well there's nothing going on. But late in August, while there was While they were monkey climbing for the sourest apples, the thing happened which changed the houses, the tastes of the fruit, the very air within the gossiping trees. Will, it's waiting. Maybe something's happening, hissed Jim. Maybe something is. Will swallowed hard and felt Jim's hand pinch his arm, for it was no longer the street of the apples or plums or apricots. It was the one house with a window at the side, and this window, Jim said, was a stage with a curtain, the shade. This is up, and in that room, on that strange stage, there were actors who spoke mysteries, mouthed wild things, laughed, sighed, murmured to each other. So much of it was whispers Will did not understand. Just one last time, Will. You know it won't be the last. Jim's face was flushed, his cheeks blazing, his eyes green glass fire. He thought of that night, then picking the apples, Jim suddenly crying, "Oh, there!" And Will, hanging to the limbs of the tree, tight pressed, terribly excited, staring in at the theater, at the peculiar stage where people, all unknowingly, lower shirts above their heads, let fall close to the rug, stood raw and animal crazed, naked, like shivering horses, hands out to touch each other. Why, they're doing, not doing it, but doing. They're doing. That's hilarious, thought Will. Why are they laughing? What's wrong with them? What's wrong? He wished the light would go out, but he hung tight to the suddenly slippery tree and watched the bright window theater, heard the laughing, and numb at last he let go, slid, fell, lay dazed, and stood in the dark, gazing up at Jim, who still clung to his high limb. Jim's face, hearth flushed, cheeks fire flushed. That's like rhyming almost too much. Lips parted, stared in. Jim, Jim, come down. But Jim did not hear. Jim! And when Jim looked down, at last he saw Will as a stranger below with some still request to give off, living and come down to earth. So Will ran off alone, thinking too much, thinking nothing at all, not knowing what to think. Will, please. Will looked at Jim now, with the library books in his hands. We've been to the library, ain't that enough? Jim shook his head. Carry these for me. He handed Will his books and trotted softly off under the hissing, whispering trees. 3 houses down, he called back. Will, know what you are, a darn old dimwit Episcopal Baptist. Well, then Jim was gone. Will seized the books tight to his chest. They were wet from his hands. Don't look back, he thought. I won't. And looking only towards home, he walked that way. Quickly he walked that way. I need so much light to read. But, like, finding the happy place with the light, apparently, is proving difficult. Halfway home, Will felt a shadow breathing hard behind him. Theater closed, said Will, not looking back. Jim walked in silence beside him for a long while. Nobody home. Swell, Jim spat. Darn Baptist preacher, you. And around the corner a tumbleweed slithered. Great cotton ball of pale paper which clung shivered to Jim's legs. Will grabbed the paper, laughing, pulled it off, let it fly. He sobbed laughing. The boys, watching the pale throwaway rattle and flit through the trees, were suddenly cold. Wait a minute, said Jim slowly. All of a sudden they were yelling, running, leaping. Don't tear it, careful. The paper fluttered like a snare drum in their hands. Come out, October 24th. Their lips moved, shadowing the words set in, that must be a type, Rococo type, whatever the fuck that is. That must be a font, more or less, back in the day. Cougar and Dark's Carnival, October 24th. That's tomorrow. Can't be, said Will. All carnivals stop after Labor Day. Who cares? 1,001 Wonders. See? Mephistopheles, the lava drinker, Mr. Electrico, the monster Montgolfier, or Golfier, I don't know. Balloon, said Will. A Montgolfier is a balloon. Mademoiselle Tarot, read Jim. The Dangling Man, the Demon Guillotine, the Illustrated Man. Hey, I don't know why that one fucked me up. It's all in bold print, too, so that doesn't help. Hey, there's just an old guy with tattoos. No, Jim breathed, worn on the paper. He's illustrated, special. See, covered with monsters. A menagerie. Jim's eyes jumped. See, the skeleton. Ain't that fine, Will? Not thin, man, no, but skeleton, see? The Dust Witch. What's a Dust Witch, Will? Dirty old gypsy. That's funny. That's really funny. No, Jim squanted off, seeing things. A gypsy that was born in the dust, raised in the dust, and someday winds up back in the dust. Here's more Egyptian mirror maze. See yourself 10,000 times. St. Anthony's Temple of Temptation. The most beautiful red will woman in the world. Finished Jim. They looked at each other. Can a carnival have the most beautiful woman on earth in its sideshow, Will? You ever seen carnival ladies, Jim? Grizzly bears, but how come this handbill claims... Oh, shut up. You mad at me, Will? No, it's just... Get it. The wind had torn the paper from their hands. The handbill blew over the trees and away in an idiot caper. Gone. That's not true anyway, Will gasped. Carnivals don't come this late in the year. Silly darn sounding thing. Who'd go to it? Me. Jim stood quietly in the dark. Me, thought Will. Seeing the guillotine flash, the Egyptian mirrors unfold accordions of light, and the sulfur-skinned devil man sipping lava like gunpowdered tea. That music, Jim murmured. Calliope. Must be, I don't know what that must be, the name of an instrument I'm not aware of. Why did... I have like a second... Odd. There was like a separate Twitch thing popped up that like didn't close. I thought I closed that 5 minutes ago and it did not. Calliope must be coming tonight. Carnivals come with sunrise. Yeah, but what about the licorice and cotton candy we smelled? Close? And Will thought of the smells and the sounds flowing over the river of wind from beyond the darkening houses. Mr. Tetley listening by his wooden Indian friend. Mr. Crossetti with a single tear shining down his cheek, and the barber pole sliding its red tongue up and around forever out of nowhere and away into eternity. Will's teeth chattered. Let's go home. We are home, cried Jim, surprised, for not knowing it, they had reached their separate houses and now moved on separate walks. On his porch, Jim leaned over and called softly, Will, you're not mad? Heck no. We won't go by that street, that house, the theater, again for a month, a year, I swear. Sure, Jim, sure. They stood with their hands on the doorknobs of their houses, and Will looked up at Jim's roof, where the lightning rod glittered against the cold stars. The storm was coming. The storm wasn't coming. No matter which, he was glad Jim had that grand vision up there. Night, night. Their separate doors slammed. Chapter 8. Will opened the door and shut it again, quietly this time. That's better, said his mother's voice. Framed through the hall door, Will saw the only theater he cared for now. The familiar stage where sat his father, home already. He and Jim must have run the long way around, forming a book, but reading the empty spaces in a chair by the fire. Mother knitted and hummed like a tea kettle. He wanted to be near and not near them. He saw them close, he saw them far. Suddenly they were awfully small and too large a room, and too big a town, and much too huge a world. It just happened. The Xbox was turning off. Almost like the sudden shift in light in the room really threw me for a moment. Like, real bad. Wow. All fucked up now. He wanted to be near and not near them. He saw them close, he saw them far. Suddenly they were awfully small, in too large a room, in too big a town, and much too large a world. In this unlocked place, they seemed at the mercy of anything that might break in from the night. Including me, Will thought, including me. Suddenly he loved them more for their smallness than he had ever had when they seemed tall. His mother's fingers twitched, her mouth counted. Yet the happiest woman he had ever seen. He remembered a greenhouse on a winter day, pushing aside thick jungle leaves to a creamy pink hothouse alone in the wilderness. That was Mother, smelling like fresh milk, happy to herself in this room. Happy, but how? Why? Here, a few feet off, was the janitor, the library man, the stranger. His uniform gone, but his face still the face of a man happier at night, alone in the deep marble vaults, whispering his broom in the drafty corridors. Will watched, wondering why this woman was so happy and this man so sad. The father stared deeply in the fire. One hand relaxed, half-cupped in that hand lay a crumpled paper ball. God, I could not spit that out. EVA mechanics. Appreciate you guys dropping in. An attempt was made. I don't know why that doesn't seem to work when you do it. It's fucking weird. You'd think it would. I don't get that. But yes, the attempt was most certainly made. Yeah, I just did the mod command for you again. It definitely said you were already a mod. I don't know why that doesn't pan out. Alright, where the hell we just go? His father stared deep in the fire, one hand relaxed. Half cupped in it lay a crumpled paper ball. Will blinked. He remembered the wind blowing, the pale handbill skittering the trees. Now the same color paper lay crushed, its rococo type hidden in his father's fingers. Hey! Will stepped into the parlor. Immediately Mom opened a smile that was like lighting a second fire. Dad, stricken, looked dismayed, as if caught in a criminal in a criminal act. So fucking funny. He wanted to say, hey, what do you think of the handbill? But Dad was cramming the handbill deep in the chair upholstery, and Mother was leafing library books. Oh, these are fine, Willie. So Will just stood with a cauldron dark on his tongue and said, boy, the wind really flew us home. Streets full of paper blowing. Dad did not flinch at this. Anything new, Dad? Dad's hand still lay tucked in the side of the chair. He lifted a gray, slightly worried, very tired gaze to his son. Stone Lion blew off the library steps, prowling the town now, looking for Christians. Won't find any. Got the only one in captivity here. She's a good... Bosh, said Mom. Walking upstairs, Will heard what he half expected to hear. A soft, fluming sigh as something fresh was tossed on the fire. In his mind, he saw Dad standing at the hearth, looking down at this crumbling paper crinkled to ash. God, I could not spit that out. Cougar, dark, carnival, witch, wonders. He wanted to go back down and stand with Dad, hands out, to be warmed by the fire. Instead, he went slowly up to shut the door of his room. Some nights, abed, Will put his ear to the wall to listen, and if his folks talked that they were right, he stayed. If not right, he turned away. If it was about time and passing years, or himself, or town, or just a general inconclusive way God ran the world. Man, that just flowed funky. Ran the world. He listened warmly, comfortably, secretly. For it was usually Dad talking. He could not often speak with Dad anywhere in the world, inside or out. But this was different. There was a thing in Dad's voice. Up, over, down, easy, as a hand winging soft in the air, like a white bird describing flight pattern. Made the ear want to follow, and the mind's eye. And the odd thing in Dad's voice was the sound truth makes being sad. I see. The sound of truth in a wild roving land of city or plain country lies will spell any boy. Many nights will drowse this way, his senses like stopped clocks, long before that half-singing voice was still. Dad's voice was a midnight school, teaching deep fathom hour, and the subject was life. So it was this night. Will's eyes shut, head leaned to the cool plaster. At first Dad's voice, a Congo drum, softly, horizons away. Mother's voice, she used her water-bright soprano, Baptist choir. Did not sing, yet sang back reply. Will imagined Dad sprawled, talking to the ceiling. Will makes me feel so old. A man should play baseball with his son. Not necessarily. I thought I heard a fucking... Not necessarily, said the woman's voice. Kindly, you're a good man. In a bad season. Hell, I was 40 when he was born. And you, who's your daughter, people say. God, when you lie down, your thoughts turn to mush. Hell. Will heard the shift of weight as Dad sat up in the dark. A match was being struck. A pipe was being smoked. Wind rattled the window. A man with posters under his arm. Carnival, said his mother's voice. This late in the year? Will wanted to turn away, but couldn't. Most beautiful woman in the world, Dad's voice murmured. Mother laughed softly. You know I'm not. No, thought Will. That's from my handbill. Why doesn't Dad tell? Because, Will answered himself. Something's going on. Oh, something is going on. Will saw that paper frolicked in the tree. Its words, the most beautiful woman, and fever prickled his cheeks. He thought Jim, the street of the theater, the naked people on the strange stage of the theater window, crazy as Chinese opera, darn old crazy as Chinese opera, judo, jujitsu, Indian puzzles, and now his father's voice, dreaming off, sad, sadder, saddest. Much too much to understand, and suddenly he was scared because Dad wouldn't talk about the handbill he had secretly burned. Will gazed out the window. There, like a milkweed plume, white paper danced in the air. No, he whispered. No carnival's coming this late, it can't. He hid under the covers, switched on his flashlight. First picture he saw was a prehistoric reptile, trap drumming a night sky a million years. Trap drumming, huh? Trap drumming. Did you hear that? Trap drumming. Apparently that's a word they used in a phrase used in the 60s. Trap drumming. It's interesting. Anyhow, heck, he thought. In the rush, I got Jim's book. He's got one of mine. But it was a pretty fine reptile. Flying towards sleep, he thought he heard his father, restless, below. The front door shut. His father was going back to work late, for no reason. With brooms or books, downtown, away, away, and mother asleep, content, not knowing he had gone. Chapter 9. No one else in the world had a name came so well off the tongue. Jim Nightshade, that's me. Jim stood tall and now lay, strung together by March grass, his bones easy in his flesh easy on his bones. The library books lay unopened by his relaxed right hand. Waiting, his eyes were dark as twilight, shadows under the time. His mother said he had almost died when he was 3 and still remembered. His hair was dark autumn chestnut, and the veins in his temple and brow, and taking his wrists and the backs of his slender hands, all those were dark blue. He was marble with dark, was Jim Nightshade. The boy who talked less and smiled less, years increased. The trouble with Jim was he looked at the world and could not look away. When you never look away all your life, by the time you were 13, you have done 20 years taking in the laundry of the world. Will Halloway, it was in him young to always just be on. Over to one side. So at 13, he had saved up only 6 years of staring. Saved up 6 years of staring. He had saved up only 6 years of staring. I don't understand what the fuck that even. Some old turn of phrase that's beyond. Oh, delightful. I'm gonna have to make more coffee. Excuse me. Jim knew every centimeter of his shadow. Could have cut it out of tar paper, furled it, and run it up a flagpole. His banner. Will, who was occasionally surprised to see his shadow following somewhere. But that was that. Jim, you awake? Hi, Mom. The door opened and now shut. He felt her weight on the bed. Why, Jim, your hands are ice. You shouldn't have the window so high. Mind your health. Sure. Don't say sure that way. You don't know until you've had 3 children and lost all but 1. Never going to have any, said Jim. You just say that. I know it. I know everything. She waited a moment. What do you know? No use making more people. People die. His voice was very calm and quiet and almost sad. That's everything. Almost everything. You're here, Jim. If you weren't, I'd have given up long ago. Mom? A long silence. You remember Dad's face? Do I look like him? The day you go away is the day he leaves forever. Who's going away? Why, just lying there, Jim. You run so fast. I never saw anyone move so much, just sleeping. Promise me, Jim. Wherever you go and come back, bring lots of kids. Let them run wild. Let me spoil them someday. I'm never going to own anything can hurt me. How that went. So odd. Anyway. You going to collect rocks, Jim? Not someday. You've got to be hurt. No, I don't. He looked at her. Her face had been hit a long time ago. Bruises had never gone from around her eyes. You'll live and get hurt, she said, in the dark. In the dark. But when it's time, tell me. Say goodbye. Otherwise, I might not let you go. Wouldn't that be terrible? Just grab a hold. She rose up suddenly and went to the window. Went to the window nose. That's so. It's because I started shifting. It went and put the window down. I don't know what happened there. Why do boys want their windows open wide? Warm blood. Warm blood. She stood alone. That's the story of all our sorrows. Don't ask why. Door shut. Jim alone raised the window, leaned into the absolutely clear. Storm, he thought. You there? Yes. Feel. Way to the west, a real humdinger rushing along. Shadow of the lightning rod lay on the drive below. He sucked in cold air and gave out a vast exhilaration. Heat. Why, he thought, why don't I climb up, knock the lightning rod loose, throw it away, and see what happens? Yes. And see what happens. What a fucking lunatic. Crazy shit to do. Situation. Chapter 10. Just after midnight. Shuffling footsteps. Along the empty street came the lightning rod salesman. His leather valise. It's gotta be the word. Valise? I don't know. Swung almost empty in his baseball mid-hand, his face at ease. He turned a corner and stopped. Paper soft white moths tapped at the empty store window, looking in. And in the window, like a great coffin boat of star-colored glass, beached on two sawhorses, lay a chunk of Alaska Snow Company ice, chopped to size great enough to flash in a giant's ring. It's interesting. Concealed in this ice was the most beautiful woman in the world. The lightning rod salesman's smile faded. In the dreaming coldness of ice, like someone fallen and slept in snow avalanches 1,000 years, forever young, this woman. She was fair, and this morning and fresh, so as tomorrow's flowers, and lovely as any maid, when he shuts up his eyes and traps her in cameo perfection on the shell of his eyelids. Well, that was weirdly descriptive in a manner I couldn't fucking throw down. The lightning rod salesman remembered to breathe. Once, long ago, traveling among the marbles of Rome and Florence, he had seen women like this, kept in stone instead of ice. Once, wandering in the Louvre, he had found women like this, washed in summer color and kept in paint. Once, as a boy, sneaking the cool grottos behind a motion picture theater screen on his way to a free seat, he had glanced up, and there, towering and flooding the haunted dark screen, a woman's face as he had never seen it, of such size and beauty, built of milk bone and moon flesh, as to freeze him there alone, behind the stage, shadowed by the motion of her, the bird-winged flicker of her eyes, the snow-pale, death-shimmering illumination from her cheeks. So from other years, there jumped forth images which flowed and found new substance here within the eyes. Color was her hair. It was blonde, to whiteness, and might take any color once set free of her. How tall was she? The prism in the ice might well multiply her size or diminish her as you moved this way or that before the store. The window, the night soft wrapped ever finger. The night soft rap tapping, ever fingering, gently probing moths. Blah. Not important. Far above all, the lightning rod salesman shivered. He knew the most extraordinary thing. If by some miracle her eyelids should open within the sapphire and she should look at him, he knew what color her eyes would be. He knew what color her eyes would be. If one were to enter this lonely night shop, if one were to put forth one's hand, the warmth of that hand would what? Melt the ice? The lightning rod salesman stood there for a long moment, his eyes quickened shut. He let his breath out. It was warm as summer on his teeth. His hand touched the shop door. It swung open. Cold Arctic air blew out around him. He stepped in, the door shut. The white snowflake moths tapped at the window. Chapter 11. Midnight then, and the town clocks chiming on toward 1 and 2 and then 3 in the deep morning. And the peals? Yes, peals is a term? I don't know. And the peals of that great clock's shaking dust off off old toys in high attics, and shedding silver off old mirrors in yet higher attics, and turning up dreams about clocks in all beds where children slept. Will be heard. Will heard it, excuse me. I missed. There's no commas in a lot of these, and that throws me off, because a lot of times when it's a person's name, there's like a comma. You know what I mean? Shit like that. But here we are. Muffled away in the prairie lands, the chuffing of an engine, the slow, following drag and glide of a train. Will sat up in bed. Across the way, like a mirror image, Jim sat up too. A calliope, that's that word again. That must be like an instrument that makes carnival music. It's gotta be something to that effect. Began to play oh so softly, screaming to itself a million miles away. In one single motion, Will leaned from his window, as did Jim. Without a word, they gazed over the trembling surf of trees. Their rooms were high, as boys' rooms should be. From these gaunt windows, they could rifle fire their gaze artillery distance past library, city hall, depot, cow barns, farmlands, to empty prairie. There, on the world's rim, the lovely snail gleam of the railway tracks ran, flinging wild gesticulations of lemon or cherry-colored semaphore to the I don't know what the fuck that is, to the stars. There, on the precipice of earth, a small steam feather uprose like the first of a storm cloud yet to come. The train itself appeared, link by link, engine, coal car, and numerous, all asleep, all slumbering, dream-filled cars followed the firefly-sparked kern, chant, drowsy autumn fire roar. Hellfires flush the stunned hills. Even at this remote view, one imagined men with buffalo-haunched arms shoveling black meteor falls of coal into the open boilers of the engine. The engine. Both boys vanished, came back to the binoculars. The engine! Civil War! No other stack like that since 1900. The rest of the train, all of it's old. The flags, the cages, it's the carnival. They listened. At first, Will thought he heard the air whistling fast in his nostrils. But no, it was the train, and the calliope sighing, weeping on that train. It sounds like church music. Hell, why would a carnival play church music? Don't say hell, whist Will. Hissed. Whist, did you hear that? Whist. Hissed Will. Hell! Jim fiercely leaned down. I've saved up all day. Everyone's asleep, so hell. The music drifted by their windows. Goose pimples rose big as boils on Will's arm. This is church music. For cry, I'm froze. Let's go watch them set up. At 3 a.m.? At 3 a.m. Jim vanished. For a moment, Will watched Jim dance around over there, shirt uplifted, pants going on, while off in the night country painting, churning with this funeral train, all black plume cars, licorice-colored cages, and a sooty calliope. I still don't understand how to say that word. Calliope? I don't know. It's a weird one. Clamoring, banging 3 different hymns mixed and lost. Maybe not there at all. Here goes nothing. Jim slid down the drainpipe on his house toward the sleeping. Jim, wait. Will thrashed in his clothes. Jim, don't go alone, and followed after. Chapter 12. Sometimes you see a kite so high, so wise it almost knows the wind. It travels and chooses to land on one spot and no other, and no matter how you yank, run this way or that, it will simply break its cord, seek its resting place, and bring you a blood-mouthed run. Jim, wait for me. So now Jim was the kite, the wind twine cut, and whatever wisdom was he taking him away from Will, who could only run earthbound after one so high and dark, silent, and suddenly strange. Jim, here I come, and running. Fucked myself up on a move. My bad. And running, Will thought. Boy, it's the same old thing. I talk, Jim runs. I tilt stone, Jim grabs the cold junk under the stones. Lickety-split, I climb hills, Jim yells off church steeples. I got a bank account, Jim's got the hair on his head, the yell in his mouth, the shirt on his back, and the tennis shoes on his feet. How come I think he's richer? Because, Will thought, I sit on a rock in the sun, and old Jim, he prickles his arm hairs by moonlight and dances hop-toads. I tend cows. Jim tames Gila monsters. Fool, I yell at Jim. Coward, he yells back. And here we go. and they ran from town, across fields, and both froze under a rail bridge beyond the hills and meadows trembling with a fur of dew. Wham! Carnival train thundered the bridge. Calliope wailed. There's no one playing it, Jim started. Jim, no jokes. Mother's honor, look! Going away, where the Calliope shimmered with star explosions, but no one sat at the high key board. The wind sluicing ice water pipes made the music. The boys ran. The train curved away, gonging its undersea funeral bell. Sunk, rusted, green moss trawling. I don't know what that means. Where the engine whistle blew a great steam whiff and Will broke out in pearls of ice. Way late at night, Will had heard how often train whistles jetting steam sleep, forlorn, alone and far, no matter how near they came. Sometimes he woke to find tears on his cheek, asked why, lay back down, listened, and thought, yes, they make me cry. Going east, going west, the trains are far gone in country deeps, they drown in tides of sleep that will escape the towns. These trains and their grieving sounds were lost forever between stations, not remembering where they had gone, where they had been, not guessing where they might go, exhaling their last pale breaths over the horizon, gone. So it was with all trains, ever. Yet this train's whistle. The wails of a lifetime were gathered in it, other nights, and other slumbering years, the howl of moon-dreamed dogs, the seep of river-cold winds, through January porch screens, stopped the blood, 1,000 fire sirens weep worse. Alcon shreds of breath, the protest of a billion people dead or dying, not wanting to be dead, their groans, their sighs burst over the earth. Tears jumped to Will's eyes. He lurched. He knelt, pretended to lace one shoe. Then he saw Jim's hands clap his ears, his eyes wet too. The whistle screamed. Jim screamed. Against the scream, the whistle shrieked. Will shrieked. Against the shriek. Then the billion voices ceased. Instantly, as if the train had plunged into a firestorm. The train skimmed off softly, slithering. Black pennants fluttering. Black confetti lost on its own sick, sweet cane wind down the hill, with the boys pursuing. The air so cold they ate ice cream with each breath. They climbed, at last rise to look down. A last rise to look down. I appreciate everybody dropping in. That's crazy. We got a huge amount of viewers right now, let alone for reading a book. You guys are fucking phenomenal. I really appreciate you. Jump in, get epic. Let's fucking do it. Don't forget to hit the chat for shoutouts, man. Drop your link, drop a clip, all that good stuff. Gotta show that love. Anyhow, where the hell were we? Let's hit this go. Phenomenal. Excuse me. They climbed a last rise to look down. Boy, whispered Jim. The train had pulled off into Rolf's Moon Meadow, so called because town couples came out to see the moon rise here over a land so wide, so long, it was like an inland sea, filled with glass in spring or hay in late summer or snow in winter. It was fine walking here along the crisp shore with the moon coming up to tremble in the tides. Well, the carnival train was crouched there now in the autumn grass in the old rail spur near the woods, and the boys crept and lay down under a bush waiting. It's so quiet, whispered Will. The train just stood in the middle of the dry autumn field. No one in the locomotive, no one in the tender, no one in any of the cars behind. All black under the just small sounds of its metal cool, ticking on the rails. Tss, said Jim. I feel them moving in there. Will felt the cat fuzz on his body bramble up by the thousands. Think they mind us watching? Maybe, said Jim happily. Then why the noisy Calliope? Well, I figured, Jim, I'll tell you. Look, whisper. As if it exhaling itself straight down from the sky, a vast moss-green balloon touched at the moon. It hovered 200 yards above and away, quietly riding the wind. Basket on the balloon. Someone in it. Then a tall man stepped down from the train caboose platform like a captain, assailing the tidal weathers of his inland sea. All dark suit, shadow-faced, he waded to the center of the meadow. His shirt as black, and the gloved hands he now stretched to the sky. As his black hands stretched to the sky, like the gloved hands. He gestured again. He gestured once, and the train came to life. At first, a head lifted in one window, then an arm, then another head like a puppet in a marionette theater. Suddenly, two men in black were carrying a dark tent pole across the hissing grass. It was the silence that made Will pull back, even as Jim leaned forward, eyes moon bright. Carnival should be all growls, roars like timberlands stacked. Okay? Bundled, rolled, and crashed. Great explosions of lion dust, men ablaze with working anger, pop bottles jangling, horse buckles shivering, engines and elephants in full stampede through rain and sweat, while zebras neighing and tremble like cage, trapped in cage. Why did that fuck me up so much? And elephants in full stampede through rains of sweat while zebras neighed and trembled like cage trapped in cage. That's hilarious. That is definitely more than likely not intentional. But this was like old movies. The silent theater, haunted with black and white, silvery mouths opening to let moonlight smoke out. Gestures made in silence, so hushed you could hear the wind fizz the hair on your cheeks. More shadows rustled from the train, passing the animal cages where darkness prowled with unlit eyes, and the calliope stood mute, save for the faintest idiot tune the breeze piped wandered up the flues. The ringmaster stood in the middle of the lamp. A balloon like a vast, moldy green cheese stood fixed in the sky. Then darkness came. The last thing Will saw was the balloon swooping down as seconds covered the moon. In the night, he felt the men rush to unseen tasks. He sensed the balloon like a great fat spider fiddling with its lines and poles, rearing a tapestry in the sky. Clouds arose. The balloon sifted up. In the meadow stood the skeleton main poles and wires of the main tent, waiting for its canvas skin. More clouds poured over the white moon. Shadowed, Will shivered. He heard Jim crawling forward, seized his ankle, stiffen. Wait! Will, they're breaking out the canvas. No, said Jim. Oh no. Somehow instead they both knew. The wires, high flung on the poles, were catching swift clouds and ripping them free from the wind in streamers, which, stitched and sewn by some gray monster shadow, made canvas and more canvas as the tent took shape. At last there was the clear water sounds of vast flags blowing. The motion stopped. The darkness within darkness was still. Will lay, eyes shut, hearing the beat, great oil-black wings as if a huge ancient bird had drummed down to breathe, to survive in the meadow. The clouds blew away. The balloon was gone. The men were gone. Tints rippled like black rain on their poles. Suddenly, it seemed a long way to town. Instinctively, Will glanced behind himself. Nothing but grass and whispers. Slowly, he looked back at the silent, dark, seeming empty. I don't like it, he said. Jim cannot tear his eyes away. Yeah, he whispered, yeah. Will stood up. Jim lay on the earth. Jim, said Will. Jim jerked his head as if slapped. He was on his knees. He swayed up, his body turned, but his eyes were fastened to those black flags, the great sideshow signs swarming with unguessed wings, horns, and deep horns. Did you hear that how that came out? Horns! Apparently I was, like, from Boston for one word. I don't know what happened there. With wings, horns, and demon smiles. Birds screamed. Jim jumped. Jim gasped. Cloud shadows panicked him over the hills to the edge of town. From there, two boys ran alone. Chapter 13. The air was cold, blowing in through the wide-open library window. Charles Halloway had stood there for a long time. Now he quickened. Along the street below fled two shadows. Two boys above them, matching shadow, stride for stride. Then they softly printed, I bet that's supposed to say sprinted, printed the night air with, oh, it does say, I don't know, with treads. Jim, cried the old man, Will! Not aloud. The boys went away toward home. Charles Holloway looked out into the wandering alone in the library, letting his broom tell him things no one else could hear. He heard the whistle and the disjointed calliope. 3, he now said, half round. 3 in the morning. In the meadow, the tents. Carnival waited for someone. Anyone to wade along the grassy surf. The great tints filled like bellows. They softly issued forth exhalations, of air that smelled like ancient yellow beasts. But only the moon looked in at the hollow, dark, deep caverns. Outside, night hung in mid-gallop on a carousel. Beyond lay fathoms of muse, which housed a multifold series of empty vanities, one wave on another. Still serene, silvered with age, white with time. Any shadow at the entrance might stir reverberations the color of fright, unravel deep-burrowed moons. If a man stood there, he'd see himself unfold away a billion times to eternity. Would a billion images look back, each face and the face and the face and the face after the oldest? Ugh. Would he find himself lost in the fine dust? In the fine dust. Would he find himself lost? Fine dust, way off deep down there. Ugh. But 50, not 50, but 60, not 60, but 70, not 70, but 80, 90, 99 years old. The maze did not ask, the maze did not tell. It simply stood and waited like a great arctic flow. 3 o'clock. Charles Holloway was cold. His skin was suddenly a lizard's skin. His stomach filled with blood turned to rust. His mouth tasted of night damps. Yet he could not turn from the library window. Far off, something glittered in the meadow. Moonlight, flashing on a great glass. Perhaps the light said something. Perhaps it spoke in code. Code. I'll go there, thought Charles Holloway. I won't go there. I like it, thought. I don't like it. A moment later, the library door slammed. Going home, he passed the empty store window. Inside stood 2 abandoned sawhorses. Between lay a pool of water. The water floated a few shards of ice. In the ice were a few long strands of hair. Charles Holloway saw, but chose not to see. He turned and was gone. The street was soon as empty as the Harper store window. Far away, in the meadow, shadows flickered in the mirror maze, as if parts of someone's life yet unborn, trapped there, waiting to be lived. So the maze waited, its cold gaze ready, so much as a bird to come look, see, fly away shrieking. But no bird came. Coffee! Delightful! 3, a voice said. Will listened, cold, but warming. Glad to be in with a roof above, floor below, wall and door between. Too much exposure, too much freedom, too much night. 3, Dad's voice. Home now, moving down the hall, speaking to itself. 3. Why, thought Will. That's when the train came. Had Dad seen, heard, followed? No, he mustn't. Will hunched himself. Why not? Why did he fear the carnival rushing in like a black stampede of storm waves on the shore out beyond? Of him, Jim, Dad knowing, of the town asleep, not knowing. Is that it? Yes. Will buried himself deep. Yes. 3. 3 in the morning, thought Charles Holloway, seated on the edge of his bed. Why did the train come at that hour? Or he thought, it's a special hour. Women never wake then. They sleep the sleep of babes and children. But men in middle age, they know that hour well. Oh God, midnight's not bad. You wake and go back to sleep. 1 or 2's not bad. You toss, but sleep again. 5 or 6 in the morning, there's hope, for dawn's just under the horizon. 3, now, Christ, 3 a.m. Doctors say the body's at a low tide then. Soul is out. Blood moves slow. You're the nearest to dead you'll ever save dying. You'll ever be saved dying. Sleep is a patch of death. But 3 in the morn, full wide-eyed staring, is living death. You dream with your eyes open. God, if you had strength to rouse up, you'd slaughter your half-dreams with buckshot. But no, you lie, pinned to a deep well bottom that's burned dry. The moon rolls by to look at you down there with its idiot face. It's a long way back to sunset, far away on to dawn, so you summon all the fool things of your life. Stupid, lovely things done with people known so very well who are now so very dead. And wasn't it true? And he read it somewhere. More people in hospitals die at 3 a.m. than at any other time. Stop, he cried silently. Charlie? His wife said in her sleep. Slowly, took off another shoe. His wife smiled in her sleep. Why? She's immortal. She has a son. Or son too. But what father ever really believes? He carries no burden. He feels no pain. What man, like woman, lies down in darkness and gets up with a child? The gentle, smiling ones own the good secret. Oh, what strange, wonderful clocks women's are. They nest in time. They make the flesh that holds fast and binds eternity. They live inside the gift. No power except and need not mention it. They speak of time when you are time and shape the universal moments as they pass into warmth and action. How men envy and often hate these women alarm these warm clocks, these wives who know they will live forever. So what do? We men turn terribly mean because we can't hold to the world or ourselves or anything. We are blind to continuity. All all breaks down, falls, melts, slips, rots, or runs away. So since we cannot shape time, where does that leave men? Sleepless, staring. 3 a.m. That's our reward. 3 in the morning, the soul's midnight. The tide goes out, the soul ebbs, and a train arrives at an hour of despair. Why? Charlie. Wife's hand moved to his. You all right, Charlie? She drowsed. He did not answer. He could not tell her how he was. Chapter 15. The sun rose yellow as a lemon. The sky was round and blue. The sky was round and blue. There you go. The sky was round and funny. The birds looped clear water songs in the air. Will and Jim leaned from their windows. Nothing had changed, except the look in Jim's eyes. Last night, said Will. Did it or didn't it happen? They both gazed towards the far meadows. The air was sweet as syrup. They could find no shadows anywhere, even under trees. 6 minutes. Jim. 5. 4 minutes later, cornflakes lurching in their stomachs. They frisked the leaves to a fine red dust going out of town. With a wild flutter of breath, they raised their eyes from earth they had been treading, and the carnival was there. Hey! The tints were lemon like the sun, brass like wheat fields a few weeks ago, flags and banners bright as blue birds snapped above lion-colored canvas. From booths, paint and cotton candy colors, fine Saturday smells of bacon and eggs, hot dogs and pancakes swam. Everywhere ran boys, everywhere sleepy followed. It's just a plain old carnival, said Will. Like heck. We weren't blind last night, come on. They marched 100 yards straight on and deep into the midway. And deeper they went, the more obvious it became they would find no nightmen, cat-shredding balloon shadow while strange tents plumed like thunderclouds. Instead, close up, the carnival was mildewed rope. Right on. Moth-eaten canvas, rain-wan, sun-bleached tinsel. The sideshow paintings, hung like sad albatross on their poles, flapped and let fall flakes of ancient paint, shivering, and at the time, revealing the unwondrous wonders of a thin man, fat man, needlehead, tattooed man, hula dancer. They prowled on, but found no mysterious midnight spheres of evil gas tied in mysterious oriental knots, 2 daggers plunged in dark earth, no maniac ticket-takers bent on terrible revenges. The calliope by the ticket booth neither screamed deaths nor hummed idiot songs to itself. The train pulled off on a spur in the summer grass. It was old, yes, and welded tight with rust, but it looked like a titanic magnet that had collected to itself. Locomotive boneyard across 3 continents, drive shafts, flywheels, smokestacks, and hand-me-down second-rate nightmares. It did not cut a black and mortuary silhouette. It asked permission but to lie dead in autumn stewing with so much tired steam and iron gunpowder blowing away. Jim, Will, here came Miss Foley, their 7th grade schoolteacher along the midway, all smiles. Boys, she said, what's wrong? Look as if you lost something. Well,
Just any man. That's Mark Zuckerberg.
delightful. Delightful. Well, said Will, last night. Did you hear the Calliope? Calliope, no. Then why are you out here so early, Miss Foley? Asked Jim. I love carnivals, said Miss Foley, a little woman lost somewhere in her gray 50s, beaming around. I'll buy hot dogs, and you eat while I look for my fool nephew. You seen him? Nephew? Robert. Staying with me a few weeks. Father's dead, mother's sick in Wisconsin. I took him in. He ran out here early today, said he'd meet me. But you know boys. My, you look glum. She shoved food at them. Eat. Cheer up. Rides will open in 10 minutes. Meanwhile, I think I'll spy through the mirror maze. No, said Will. No what? asked Foley. No mirror ways. Will swallowed. He stared at fathoms of reflections. He can never strike bottom here. It was like winter standing tall, waiting to kill you with a glance. Miss Foley, he said at last, and wondered to hear his mouth say, don't go in there. Why not? Jim peered, fascinated, into Will's face. Yeah, tell us. Why not? People get lost, said Will lamely. All the more reason. Robert might be wandering loose and not find his way out if I don't grab his ear. Never can tell. Will could not take his eyes off the millions of miles of blind glass. What might be swimming around in there? Yeah, she must be gaming. I heard her start yelling. I was like, what the fuck? Might be swimming around in there. Swimming? Miss Foley laughed. What a lovely mind you have, Willie. Well, yes, but I'm an old fish, so... Miss Foley. Miss Foley waved, poised, took a step, and vanished into the mirror ocean. They watched as she settled, wandered, sank deep, deep, and was finally dissolved gray among silver. Jim grabbed. Will! What was all that? Gosh, Jim, it's the mirrors. They're the only things I don't like. I mean, they're the only things like last night. Boy, you've been out in the sun, snorted Jim. That maze there is... Voice trailed off. He sniffed the cold air blowing out from an ice house between the train reflections, saying, between the tall reflections. Jim, you were saying? But Jim said nothing. For a long time, he clasped his hand to the back of his neck. It really does, he cries. In soft amaze. God, I suck at reading right at the moment. What does? Hair. I read it all my life in scary stories. It stands on end. Mine's doing it now. Gosh, Jim, so's mine. They stood entranced with the delicious cold bumps on their necks and the suddenly stiffened small hairs quilled up all over their scalps. There was a flourish of light and shadow. Bumping out through the mirror maze, they saw 2, 4, a dozen Miss Foleys. They didn't know which one was real, so they waved to all of them. But none of the Miss Foleys saw or waved back. Blind, she walked. Blind, she tacked her nails to cold glass. Miss Foley! Her eyes flexed wide as from a blast of photographic powder. I didn't know why the flash stuff they used back in the day. You know what I mean? Anyhow, flexed wide as if from blasts of photographic powder. Skinned white like a statue's deep under the glass. She spoke, she murmured, she whispered. Now she cried. Now she snorted. Now she yelled. She knocked glass with her head, her elbows. Tilted drunken as a light blind moth, raised her hands on... Oh God! Help! She waved. Help! Oh God! Jim and Will saw their own faces, pale, their own eyes wide in the mirrors as they plunged. Miss Foley! Here! Jim cracked his brow. This way! But Will found only cold glass. A hand flew from empty space, an old woman's hand sinking for the last time. It seized anything to save itself. This anything was Will. She pulled him under. Will! Jim! Jim! Jim held them as he held her and pulled her free of the silently rushing mirrors coming from the desolate seas. He stepped into sunlight. Miss Foley, one hand to her bruised cheek, bleated, muttered, then laughed quickly, and gasped, wiped her eyes. Thank you. Will. Jim. Oh, thank you. I'd have drowned. Well, you were right. My God, did you see her? She's lost, drowned in there. Poor girl. Oh, the poor sweet. Save her. Oh, we must save her. Miss Foley, boy, you're hurting. Will firmly removed his fist from her, clutching flesh from. I'm sorry. I read that backwards. Will firmly removed her fists from clenching the flesh of his arm. There's no one in there. I saw her. Please, look. Save her. Will jumped to the maze entrance and stopped. Ticket taker gave him an idle glance of contempt. Will backed away to Miss Foley. I swear, no one went in ahead of you. Ma'am, it's my fault. I joked about the water. You must have gotten mixed up, lost, and scared. But if she heard, she went on biting the back of her hand. Her voice, the voice of someone come out of the sea, after no air, a long dread time deep, no hope of life, and now set free. Gone. She's at the bottom, poor girl. I knew her. I know you. Said when I first saw her a minute ago, I waved hello, hello, I ran, bang, I fell, she fell, a dozen, 1,000 of her fell. Wait, I said, oh, she looks so fine, so lovely, so young, but it scared me. What are you doing here? I said. Why, I think she said, I'm real. You're not. She laughed. Way underwater, she ran off in the maze. Must find her before Miss Foley. Will's arm around her took a last trembling breath and grew strangely quiet. Jim was staring deep into these cold mirrors, looking for sharks that could not be seen. Miss Foley, he said. What did she look like? Miss Foley's voice was pale but calm. Her voice was pale but calm. The fact is, she looked like myself many years ago. I'll go home now, she said. Miss Foley will. No, stay. I'm just fine. Have fun, boys. Enjoy. She walked away, slowly, alone, down the midway. Somewhere a vast animal made water. Ammonia made the. I see. Ammonia made the wind turn ancient as it passed. I'm leaving, she said. Will, said Jim, we're staying until sundown. Boy, dark sundown, and figure it all. You chicken? No, murmured Will. Anybody want to dive back in that maze? Jim gazed fiercely deep into the bottomless sea. There now only pure light glanced back at itself, held up emptiness upon emptiness upon emptiness before their eyes. Nobody. Jim let his heart beat twice, I guess. I don't want the coffee to end. A bad thing happened at sunset. Jim vanished. Through noon, the afternoon. They had screamed up half the rides, knocked over dirty milk bottles, smashed cube-high doll winning plates, smelling, listening, looking their way through the autumn crowd, trampling leafy sawdust. And then quite suddenly Jim was gone. Will, not asking anyone but himself, absolutely silent, sure, walked steadily through the late crowd as the sky was turning plum-colored until he came to the maze and paid his dime and stepped up inside and called softly just one time. Jim? Jim was there, half in, half out of cold glass tides, like someone abandoned on a seashore. A close friend has gone far out. And there's wonder if he will ever come back. Jim stood as if he had not moved so much as an eyelash in 5 minutes, staring, his mouth half open, waiting for the next wave to come in and show him more. Jim, get out of there. Will. Jim sighed faintly. B. Like heck. One leap, Will grabbed Jim's belt and hauled. Shuffling backwards, Jim did not seem to know he was being dragged from the maze, for he kept protesting in awe at some unseen wonder. Oh, Will, oh, Willie, Will, oh, Willie. Jim, you nut? I'm taking you home. What? 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 They were in the cold air. The sky was darker than Plumsdale, with a few clouds burning late sunfire above. Sunfire flamed on Jim's feverish cheeks, his lips, his wide and terribly rich green shining eyes. Jim, what'd you see in there? Same as Miss Foley. What? What? I'm gonna bust your nose. Come on. He hustled, pulled, shoved, half carried this fever, this elation, this unstruggling friend. Can't tell you, Will. Wouldn't believe it. Can't tell you in there. It like stutters. Shut up. Will socked his arm. Scare a heck out of me. Man, there we go. Scare a heck out of me. Just like she scared us. Bugs. It's almost supper time. Folks will think we're dead and buried. I don't know why folks will think we're dead buried because we missed supper. That's so funny. They were striding now, slashing the autumn grass with their shoes. Beyond the tents and the hay-smelling leaf-mold fields, Will glared at town. Will glaring at town, Jim staring back at the high, now darkening banners as the last light of the sun hit under the earth. Will, we got to come back. Tonight. Okay, come back alone. Jim stopped. He wouldn't let me come alone. You wouldn't let me. You're always going to be around, aren't you, Will, to protect me? Look who needs protection. Will laughed and then did not laugh again, for Jim was looking at him, the last wild light dying in his mouth as he caught in thin hollows of his nostrils in his suddenly deep-set eyes. You'll always be with me, huh, Will? Jim simply breathed warm upon him, and his blood stirred in his old, the familiar answer, yes, yes, you know it. Yes, yes. Turning together, I don't know where darkly came from. And turning together, they stumbled over a clanging dark mound of leather bag. They stood for a long moment over the leather bag. It's a big cup. I kept thinking it was going to be the end of it. I almost fucking drowned right there. On stream. I almost died from coffee. I'm probably going to have to call this soon because we just hit the 2-hour mark. I'm ready to eat stuff. Yada, yada, yada. But let's finish this little chapter right here. They stood for a long moment over the huge leather bag. Almost secretively, Will kicked it. It made a sound of iron indigestion. Why, said Will, that belongs to the lightning rod salesman. Jim slipped his hand through the leather mouth and hefted forth a metal shaft clustered with chimeras, Chinese dragons, all fang, eyeball, and moss-green armor. All cross and crescent, every symbol around the world that made men safe, or seemed to, clung here, grieving the boys, hands with odd weight and meaning. Storm never came, but he went. Where? Why did he leave his bag? They both looked to the carnival where dusk colored the canvas billows. Shadows ran coolly out to engulf them. People in cars honked home in tired commotions. Boys on skeleton bikes whistled Dog's Afternoon. Soon night would own the midway, while shadows rode the Ferris wheel up to the stars. Up to cloud the stars. I don't know why that fucked me up. People, said Jim, don't leave their whole life laying around. This is everything that old man owned. Something important. Jim breathed soft fire and made him forget. So he just walked off and left this year? What? What's so important you forget everything? Why? Jim examined his friend. Twilight on his face. No one can tell you. Why not yourself? Mysteries and mysteries. Storm salesman. Storm salesman's bag. If we don't look now, we might never know. Jim, 10 minutes, sure. Midway will be dark. Everyone gone home for dinner. Just us alone. Want to feel great? Just us. And here we go. Back in. Passing the mirror maze, I saw 2 armies. A billion Jims, a billion Wills collide, melt, vanish. And like those armies, so vanished the real armies of people. The boys stood alone among the encampments of dusk, thinking of all the boys in town sitting down to warm food in bright rooms. That was actually the end of the chapter right there. So we're on page 72, or at the beginning of chapter 18, if that's how you want to look at it. I'm going to take a break. We'll probably actually game here before too long, just because what the fuck else am I doing with my life right now? Let's drop the who to raid command. I drew a fucking blank for a moment. Drop the who to raid command. Oh, let's I'm gonna do a commercial break because it takes forever for it to load. I'm gonna switch over to my other screen where I can see my followers and stuff like that. I'm gonna drop a raid on somebody. You guys got someone to suggest, or if you yourself are live or going live or whatever, want to see yourself or someone rated, drop a name in the fucking chat, man. We'll do it to it. What up, girlfriend?
Deadly self-defense move known to man.
What the hell was that? Scared the shit out of me.
However, this move is used for life or death situations and not to be messed with. This move was created by
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't hurt.
Then you smoked me in the
you were
finger
like,
with. Yeah,
which is why once
it was definitely funny.
to use caution. Step 1 is to make a case which
Just read a book on stream for 2 hours.
if it is on the
Just read a book on stream
Oh,
for
are
2
you
hours.
done?
do this
I'm
with hands. You never
signing off-ish now, but I am still on.
Once you activate this way, move them slowly from side to side, and eventually the momentum will end up with you.
So yeah, let's have a look. Like I said, I do plan on getting back online. Honestly, part of me considered just kicking it to my I'm tied up screen and staying online, but that just doesn't seem right when I know that I'm gonna be in it. I'm gonna probably eat something, use the restroom, just all the things in the middle. How it is. So I played with Arc of Fire the other day. He's pretty decent on views right now, but he's playing Red Dead Redemption, of which I'm a huge fan, and I haven't really played much of in the last couple months. So I'm thinking we'll hit him with a raid just out of support.
Mom, the walls! Mom, the walls are closing! I can't...
Copy paste this bitch to Twitter.
Tell me how you know your boyfriend won't cheat on me.
What have you done? He put his hood up.
Yeah.
What'd she do? He's like, bitch, we don't live in the hood.
Did you steal my money? What? No.
Alright, and then I'm thinking we'll do the actual raid command.
Unicorns and liars. No, dude, I swear. I didn't take your money.
On Arc of Fire.
Eye on you. Okay, bye, I guess. Oh my god.
Kaboom. I appreciate all you guys dropping in. I thoroughly enjoy reading. I get really into reading when I'm playing single player games that have reading and stuff like that. Obviously, I enjoy reading books. It's a fucking lost art anymore. I don't know if you guys are readers, but pick up a book and read something. It's fucking awesome. Yeah, we've already got the raid initiated. Whenever the timer counts down, we're gonna drop a raid on Arc of Fire. Typically, I kick it to my ending spiel right here, just for shits and giggles. I think that we're gonna play it out this time. So, hope you guys had a good time. I know I did. Appreciate all the support. Hope you guys have a good day. Until next time, jump in, get epic.
Bye.
I'm still live right now.
And then I'll bite it down.
That's just how it is.
Papa Raj, how's the meal?
This shit is busting respectfully.
Yes, sir.